I know people that can have sex with somebody and forget and keep it going.
Yeah.
Everybody isn't built that way. We all have to kind of look in somebody's eyes and really trust and ask and understand and go, are we gonna be good after? Because if not, let's not even go there. Are we really in a place emotionally to handle it? Because I might be, but if I know in my heart of hearts, you aren't, the loving thing is to say, no. Out of love, not rejection. I've had to realize that cuddling is just as significant as coming. Having a real, true level of intimacy with someone, I realized is just as significant as having sex with somebody. I felt a little bit of hurt and heartbreak when there was a person who I did not have sex with. But I think that person felt like what we had was not as significant because we did not have sex.
Why didn't you have sex with that person?
You're not supposed to have sex with everybody. You'll get like sunglasses and then without sunglasses, you'll get both.
Oh wow, there's gonna be a transition.
Well, yeah.
Maybe.
Because I'm not gonna have sunglasses on when I'm talking to you.
Maybe you would.
No, that's crazy. No, we're gonna talk intimacy. I gotta have the eyes available.
Okay, with that being said.
Yes.
What is calling you?
What is calling me
yes,
right now?
Yes, what is calling you to teach about? What are we gonna learn today?
You believe it's magic.
To me specifically, I think intimacy and sex, people just sort of think they're the same thing. And I've had to find that they're really not. They sometimes don't really have anything to do with each other.
Yes.
Sex is a part of it. It's what happens around it, what happens before and after it.
Yes.
Like right after. Are we talking? Are we awkward? Are we quiet? Are we sleeping? Are we comfortable? Are we safe? Are we confused? Are we scared? Are we nervous? And I think that to me is where intimacy comes in. Can you talk about it? Like, what do you need now?
This episode of Lovers is presented by Bumble. Date your way on Bumble. We want to thank Bumble for making it possible to match with guests like Lena Waithe. Lena is an Emmy-winning writer, producer, and actress best known for her work on Queen and Slim, Master of None, and The Shy. I want to talk about how I know you.
Okay.
And you might hate this.
No.
You might.
Okay.
Because you get a variety.
Let's see.
I know you from Master of None, of course.
Love that.
But then it was the drama surrounding one of your relationships that happened, and my friends who were like really invested in understanding this, that made me want to get to know you as a person. So I knew you, of course, as a writer and as a character in that show. But like that's what like intimately introduced me to you. And then I feel like since then I've had a blessed experience of getting to know you through friends.
Yeah.
Like getting to see how you show up in their lives, and then of course seeing your work. So as much as sometimes talking about intimacy feels overwhelming, sometimes it's like the beautiful way that people connect with you as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about being a public person is that my life is gonna happen, you know? And it's chill when things are fine and cool, you know? But when you go through a breakup and also figuring out love and relationships is the most difficult thing. It's so hard because all we have to go on is what we've been taught by our parents and society. And when you're a person who's queer, you have even less to go on because oftentimes you're not raised by queer parents. And growing up in the 90s, it wasn't a whole lot of queer representation. And also the way love is presented to us by film and TV is it's always sort of told with a meet cute, a conflict, and a resolution. And that's not often how it is in real life. It's not that linear. And I think the thing that I really found is that I didn't really have the language on how to communicate about what I needed or what I was feeling. And rather than saying that, the actions sometimes you say, well, I'm just gonna do this and figure this out. And I think that can be damaging, it can be difficult, it can be hard, you make mistakes. But I think what's important for me is to learn from those mistakes and find the language through therapy. That's how I chose to do it. Everybody has their own way of doing things, but doing therapy and meditation and being reflective and turning inward was really important for me. And what is interesting too is, as a society, we look at public figures and talk about how those people operate in their relationships. And it is a bit of a distraction for us, and also a way for us to look at our own lives. But the interesting thing is that there's this expectation that if you're queer, if you're othered, that you're better at love, or you should have a more a stronger moral compass when it comes to love. And the truth is we're like everybody else. I'm just like anyone else in the world. I don't have it figured out. I don't always know how to communicate, and I don't always think about putting myself and my needs first, because we think in love it's about sacrifice and always compromising and thinking this has to be forever. And sometimes it's like, oh, has this relationship run its course? How do I even have that conversation? How do I go about saying that? Because I don't want this person who I love so much to think that I don't love them anymore, but rather I'm just in a different space in my life. I'm not the same person I was, and we're maybe growing at different paces. So I also don't mind that people got a chance to see me being human, because it's important for humans to witness other humans being human.
I think challenging assumptions feels like a theme that one, we're talking about intimacy versus sex. And I don't want to use the word versus, intimacy and also versus, and intimacy or sex. Like there not being this idea that they're inherently married.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yes. And then also when you were talking just about the assumption that queer people are better at relationships because they've already had to have so many hard conversations, that they're better at communication, they're better at talking about the hard things, they're better about diving into the taboo. And then even before we started rolling, you were like, I'm very sexualized, but I'm actually not somebody who's very open with talking about sex.
Yeah.
Because, there is something about you that's so sexy, and that it does feel like a assumption that I made that you were just very open about sex.
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think because I have a very unique relationship with sex, it's something that I take very seriously. I'm not super casual with it, and I think it's because...
Always have been like that?
Always.
Really?
Yeah. And I think it's because I'm a person that identifies as a lesbian. I'm attracted to women. I realized as I got older, when you have two women connecting in that way, it is, and of course you're gonna get some lesbians who are like, oh, I can, you have different type of people, because you tell me some lesbians, some queer women who are like, child, I'm here, there, everywhere, it's all good. But for me, because I'm a person that is really, I'm gonna connect even in a conversation, if there's a physical element of that, there's gonna be some strong feelings. Now, I experienced having sexual encounters where I wasn't necessarily in a relationship with that person and we weren't really involved, and it wasn't as fulfilling as I would have liked the experience to be. And so then when I began engaging in sex with someone that I was in love with and I was in a relationship with, it was a very different thing. And there was a safety and a familiarity that felt right to me and felt really comfortable. Now, that doesn't mean that when I'm out in the world, I'm not having connections with other people and meeting other people. And that's the thing where things get complicated, because I think you kind of feel like, oh, well, once I'm with this person and we have sex and it's cool and it's great, I'm good. And that's the part that society doesn't talk to you about, which is, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be attracted to other people. It doesn't mean you won't have connections with other people. Then it's about how do you operate in that space. I think intimacy is one thing. It can mean many things.
Yes.
And I think sex is also its own thing. I think there are these two very beautiful actions. To have sex with someone. But that's the thing, sex can be beautiful, it can be stressful, it can be an escape, it can be painful sometimes, And intimacy can be quiet. It can be new. It can be loud.
It can be loud.
Yeah.
That felt, because I define intimacy as vulnerable and personal. And what I mean is vulnerable is it's somewhere tender. It's somewhere that everyone gets to see, and it's personal because I'm only showing it to you.
Right.
I think that it's very difficult for that reason to have intimate relationships parasocially because it's not personal.
Yeah.
You could be the person in the Starbucks lineup, or you could be the person sitting on my couch. I'm still providing the same information.
Right.
So when something is intimate, it's just between you and me, and I'm only showing this to you because of what you mean to me. And so I think for that reason, like, sex can be intimate, but it also doesn't have to be.
Right.
And also, to your point, intimacy doesn't have to necessarily include sex.
Right. But also sometimes people use the term almost in a place of, because someone say, were you intimate with this person last night? And so...
But that could also mean, did you guys have a meaningful conversation?
Exactly. And it depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
It depends on how you're using the word. Because if someone asked me, were you intimate with her last night? It's about, where does my brain go? Because I could say, were we intimate last night? We talked all night. So yes. You know, or we made love all night. So yes. And, or, you know, a person could have really hot, sweaty, very like animalistic sex. And somebody said, were you intimate last night? I could say, no, we were not intimate. I think I felt a little bit of hurt and heartbreak, you know, when there was a person who I did not have sex with, but felt that there was an intimate connection. But I think that person felt like what we had was not as significant because we did not have sex. And that can feel...
So can you explain that to me? So they... Explain it to me. They felt like they had a right to your body?
No. The next person they went to, they had sex with all the time. And someone said, oh yeah, they felt like they had more of a thing with that person and less of a thing with you. And I think because the only difference is there was no sex with that person to me. The other person there was. So they put more significance and more importance on having sex and being intimate.
Did that bother you?
No, it educated me. Because some people value physical intimacy more than emotional intimacy. And that person has every right to value that. And I just value a conversation, you know, that goes till 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe more than I do us climaxing multiple times in the evening. Both are cool, but I would never dismiss a relationship because sex wasn't had. And I think sometimes people may say, oh, well, we didn't have sex, so who cares?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that because I have really significant, intimate relationships that were romantic, that were very meaningful, where we never had sex. And I'm like, man, did that person look at it like, yeah.
It wasn't.
And then I'm like, that was like a lifetime.
It changed. I'm thinking like, damn, I like really connected with you. Like I thought we had a vibe. I thought it was something really special. Because I'm thinking like, what we shared, I could not have shared with anyone else before or after. And so like, you can have sex with a lot of folks.
Can I ask in your case, and I can answer if it's helpful, but why didn't you have sex with that person?
I think you're not supposed to have sex with everybody just because there's a connection or a vibe. And I think that's something that just comes with maturity. Because I think when there is a spark or a connection or a vibe or, you know, the hair stand up, I think that for most people, when we're taught, I need to make this physical. I need to experience this on a physical level. So I can conquer it, or so I can feel complete, so it can feel real, so it can be meaningful. And I think it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It is meaningful. It is already meaningful. At the end of the conversation, it is complete. I don't necessarily need to touch. I don't need to have that experience. Because in doing that, you have to ask about the after. Can that person handle the physical? Because everybody can't. I think some people want to experience it. I think they like, I want to go on this ride, but how are you going to be after the ride? Are you able to say, okay, there was that, and we move on? And I think most times people think they can handle the physical, and then once the physical happens, something in them sort of shifts, and they then have to wonder, so what are we now? Are we going to do it again? Or what does this mean? If we don't do it again, does it mean that we didn't have a good time? Because that's the interesting thing about when something becomes physical, is do you continue the physicality? Is it a one-time thing? Do you want to experience it again? If you experience it again, then what are the rules around it? Do we do it one more time and that's it? And so I think there's just so much conversation that has to happen after the physical has happened, that everybody isn't always in a space to rise to the occasion and have the conversation that one needs to have once the physical has taken place. And so that's why sometimes I think it's healthier to allow it to be more emotional and let it just be in spirit. So that way there is no expectations when you see each other again. But once the physical has happened, you can't take it away. The energy is now there. It's that thing of like, if you're physical with someone, you go away, a week later you see them again, there's a knowing, there's a different, the chemistry has changed. If you aren't physical with that person, if you have a lovely evening, a week later, there's still sort of this energy that the nervous system is still calm because you haven't touched it.
It's so interesting because people could look at it like the reverse, right? Like you could be physical with someone, but you don't have to be intimate with everybody. And so I almost think generously, I don't know if that's the right word, but I would assume that when people get intimate with you, they want more and they want to feel like they've had the full experience. And there's also something, I think women experience this a lot, and I wonder if this is the way in the queer world, but in the heterosexual world, if a man denies a woman of sex, it's like offensive.
Yeah.
In my case, when I turned down this man, it was more so because the intimacy wasn't consistent enough for me to make that investment. So it was more like me protecting my purity, for lack of a better term, versus being mindful about what this intimate exchange could, like, how it could be best served. So it feels...
It's a rejection.
It's a rejection. Even if they have shared parts of themselves they wouldn't share with anybody else,
right.
Even if they devoted thing to you, gave you, I'm going to use the word communal responsiveness, but like picked you up from the airport, cleaned your car, like sent you some money, whatever it was, there was deep, intimate exchanges happening. If sex is not offered to them, they're like, well, you rejected me.
Right. Or what does this even mean?
Does that happen in the queer community?
Sure. Because people want to be wanted. People want to be desired. No, I think it's never about not finding someone sexually attractive. I think it's about how will we proceed post physical interaction. I'm always thinking about the after. Because to me, sex is a beginning. It's the beginning of something new. And it's going to change the dynamic. So the question for me is never, am I attracted to you, or like, do I want to have sex with you? Because the truth is, more often than not, yeah, sure, yeah, I'd like to, sure.
That's the answer everybody wants. Sure, yeah.
Sure. But for me, I like to give pleasure, and that's something that I enjoy, but it's also something that speaks to my ego and things like that. But I have to kind of rise above that desire and ask myself, but what do I want to give this person beyond pleasure? What do I have the capacity to give? And then I have to ask myself, what is this person, what is the exchange? What do they want to, what do they want to give? How do they want to show up for me? And everybody's in a different place in their journey. And I think it is important that we really listen to a person, really allow that person to reveal themselves, and ask ourselves, do I really want to engage in this level of intensity with this person? And can this person also handle it? That's the best way I can, word it, is you want to ask yourself, can this person handle it? And not meaning like, can they handle me? Like, that Usher song, can you handle it? Great song. Because Usher's asking, can you handle it? Not like, look, you can take that a couple different ways.
Yeah.
But I think he's almost saying like, this is not, you sure? Because it's not for the weak. If you can't handle it, don't step into the ring. And I think sometimes people go, I want to step into the ring, I want to have experience, and they kind of stumble out of it, kind of maybe wishing they had not stepped into the ring in the first place, because it's not fun. When you get into a physical space with someone and then that person's like, all right, I'm gone, I'm good. Because now, and people use the term soul tie. Some people that is not the same for everybody. Because some people, I know people that can have sex with somebody and forget and keep it going.
Yeah.
There are people that are able to do that. Everybody isn't built that way. We all have to kind of look in somebody's eyes and really trust and ask and understand and go, are we going to be good after? Because if not, let's not even go there. And hopefully you're not sitting across from somebody that says, yeah, I'll be good. And then you got to really listen and pay attention and go, are you just saying that because you want to get on the ride? Or can I trust that you can? And I would even say if you don't know, say, you know what, let's hold. Let's just chill tonight and give me a little bit more time. And if a person gets a little fidgety and kind of go, well, why we gotta da-da-da-da-da? That also tells you something you need to know. Because if you say, I don't know if I can feel safe about the after yet, can we give it a couple more weeks? And if that person says, I don't want to give it a couple more weeks, that helps you to understand. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a person is not have sex with them. Because just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Hey lovers, sorry for the interruption, but had to show some love to the sponsor of this video, Bumble, and also gotta finish up some spring cleaning of our old shooting space, the Lovers and Friends podcast. That's why I'm a big fan of setting dating intentions in the spring. And if you're good at putting in the work, then why not find people who have also put in the same kind of effort? That's why I think it's so cool that on Bumble right now, you can filter potential matches by their dating intentions and also their interests. Look, I know you know what you're looking for. You just need some help in finding it. So let Bumble take on some of the load so you can show up on dates light and refreshed. Let's keep this spring cleaning energy going and date your way on Bumble. Back to work.
And I think we will save ourselves a lot of pain and heartache by not always crossing that line if it's not absolutely necessary. Because sometimes it is just ego. Sometimes it is just a distraction. I want to be numbed, or I want to just have that experience. And it sometimes can hurt. It can do more damage, than good. And I think it does take a thing in your brain to go, hold on, like stop. Because the physical wants what it wants. The body wants that thing. But that's when you have to quiet the body, quiet the mind and say, wait a minute, what am I doing? What are we doing? Are we sure we want to do this? And are we really in a place emotionally to handle it? Because I might be, but if I know in my heart of hearts, you aren't, the loving thing is to say, no, I don't think we should. Out of love, not rejection. Because sometimes that's, for some people, that's the go-to. That's what I know how to do. I know how to impress. I know how to make sure, you feel that thing and we gonna have that. But then it could break us. You can destroy somebody by having sex with them. If you're not both in a place to understand what that means for both of you. And there's nothing worse than regretting having sex with somebody. Because you can't go back. So I always, really try to think about it and go, how am I going to feel after? Who are we going to be after? And if it's hard to explain, and it's an easy question to ask in a moment. Who are we going to be after this?
Do you ask that question?
I didn't ask it in that way, but I think now, sitting here thinking about it, who do we want to be after this? Who do you want to be after this? What do you want from me after this? And the question is, can you trust that person at their word? Because the person says, I don't need anything from you after. I just want to have fun. It's all good. But then you got to think and say, is this a person that when they say something, they mean it? Or is this a person that says something to get the thing that they want in the moment? And that discernment is on us. And if we don't know and we can't tell, then say, give me a week. Let's give it a week. Let's give it a night. Because the truth is, nobody's going anywhere. So, is it the end of the world? Is it your last night on earth? Because if it's not, there's time. What's the rush? If the moment is presenting itself now, maybe another opportunity will present itself again. But I think we get caught up in the moment and not wanting to disappoint the other person, not wanting to hurt the other person, and also wanting to escape, wanting to feel wanted, wanting to feel desired, wanting a release. And that's also I'm a big believer in self-love. I believe in...
Do you mean masturbation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Giving myself pleasure.
Yeah.
I don't need to be dependent on another person for me to have a good time, even while in a relationship. And I think that's a very interesting thing. People associate having an orgasm with another person. And I'm like, are you not a person? Do you not know what you like? Because if you sort of feel like, I want this person to give me orgasm, I want to have this person, I want to experience this person, if you're not sure if that person can handle that with you, it might be good to have a pause, go home, think of that person while having an experience with yourself. And sometimes that's the healthiest thing to do.
Is it fair for me to assume that a lot of people want to have sex with you?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
you live this life. You live the sunglasses in the club life. So, I mean, this is the thing. People have different experiences with it. Some people are constantly bombarded with requests. And then there are the people that's like, that doesn't actually feel like it happens very frequently. I actually always remember this, is that after a club one day, we went to like a hot dog stand. We were just talking. We're like, yo, these dudes are all over us, complaining about it. And then the hot dog stand lady was like, it's probably been 20 years since anybody has looked at me in a way that has felt like they wanted that from me.
Wow.
So she's like, as much as it feels annoying right now, there will come a time where you'll never experience that. So I think you just know if that energy is around you.
Interesting.
So is it fair to assume, this is going to just inform my line of questioning.
No,
That's
go
why I'm
for it.
asking. I'm not.
It's funny I've become thinking about it, because it's something I don't think about. If people like are wanting to have sex with me.
You know what? I think about it a lot. I think it changed for me. I remember when I was pregnant, it was the first time that I realized people looked at my stomach a lot. And then now I think people look at my kids a lot. So like I noticed that the gaze has shifted.
That's interesting.
At different times in my life. So maybe I'm hyper cognizant of it.
No, I think it's interesting. I think for me, because I don't have sex with men and I don't think about the male gaze ever, that I think the interesting thing is with women, it's hard to tell.
Really?
Because women can, just be lovely and sweet, and we can be having a conversation, and it could become sexual or it could remain platonic. Because oftentimes I'm talking to women, I don't know if she's curious, if she's queer, if she's bi, if she's someone who's a straight person. But I'm also a person because, and this is a thing that masked women deal with, is like, oh, you're gonna talk to a straight woman, the next thing you know, she's not straight no more. And I have engaged with women who had not been with women before. And then we had an experience and then we continued and then, you know, whatever. People, I think sexuality is fluid. I'm a believer of that, especially because I'm a person who dates women, and I've dated women who have never dated women before. And so I just know that, you know, there could be a possibility that it could turn into something romantic, or it could just turn into a really beautiful friendship. And I'm also friends with a lot of straight women who are beautiful and charismatic and talented and loving. And we can talk from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And there's nothing sexual about it at all. They're like my sisters. And that's just what it is. And then sometimes I can be talking to a woman and I don't think anything of it because I'm like, oh, she's straight anyway. And then next thing I know, they're like, hey, can we, you know, maybe do that again and maybe call it a date per se? And I go, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, sure, I'm game for that. So for me, it's
I
always
love that question.
open-ended.
I think that dudes should take that question, friend zone dudes who complain a lot. Hey, can we do this again and call it a date?
Yeah.
What? That's so clarifying.
Yeah. And then that way the other person may say, you know what, I don't know if I want to like go on a date with you, but I want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
And hopefully the person doesn't take that personally and doesn't feel rejected by it, because a connection is a gift from God. Whether you end up having sex with that person or you never have sex with that person at all. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about, and sex being such this like I don't know, this North Star for people. For me, it's not. I'm not thinking about when are we gonna have sex? Are we gonna have sex? Should we have sex? It's just not on my brain. It's more about, oh, how is this connection gonna flourish? How are we gonna bloom? How is this gonna, are we gonna voice notes? Are we gonna text? Are we gonna share movie recommendations? Are we gonna send songs to each other? We don't necessarily have to fuck the energy.
I love what you said too, that sex is the start, it's the beginning. But also in reflection of what you're saying, it could also be the end. Like if you're having this beautiful, organic, intimate connection, and then you insert sex into it, it can actually be the end of the progress there, because now new expectations come into place.
It's a shift. It's literally a shift in energy. Once you have that experience with someone, you just aren't the same after that. Now, mind you, you can get back to a sort of new normal, or you can have sex once and never do it again, but you can't unfuck somebody. So it's just really a matter of, do you want to introduce sex into the relationship? And if so, how is it going to change it? How is it going to grow it? Because there's nothing worse than two people that have a lovely relationship, friendship, bond, have sex, and it ruins everything. And I think that's why communication is so important. Because I would say, if you really are thinking about, hey, I want to have sex with this person, I would say talk about it till the cows come home. Talk about it left and right.
What would that conversation sound like?
What does sex look like to you? What does sex mean to you? What do you enjoy? How are you after having sex with someone? What do you like after sex? You want to be held? You want to talk? What does sex mean to you? You know, because a person may say, it's nothing to me, I don't think that much of it. And the other person may say, oh, well, for me, it's like a big thing. And they may go, oh, okay. And you may realize, oh, well, then sex, and also, what does sex mean to you? What does sex mean to you? You may have different definitions of it. So I think it really is important to really, because the truth is, we should treat it like a bigger decision than we do. And then one person wants more than the other. Another person, you know, is like, oh, well, I thought we were just going to have fun. And I know, but because sometimes a person can have really like intense sex with a person and then the next day be off. And the other person's still stuck in that was the most amazing like sex of my life. Like, this must be my person. Another person's like, oh no, I have sex like that every Wednesday with somebody new. And so you really got to understand what the other person is dealing with. And that can hurt them in a way that just can feel really devastating, and you can't go back from it.
Even if you clarify that in the beginning, I'm like trying to apples to oranges. I'm going to just throw out a thought that I'm having that may not apply at all. But when I was newly single in LA, and I wanted to just experience pleasure. I was like studying sexology. I wanted to try new stuff. But I also didn't want the specific act of penetration because of what that person would think that meant in an intimate sense. And also for whatever Puritan views I probably still hold of myself. So I would go on dates with people, have a really intimate time, engage with them. And if it felt good to be physical, I would like draw the boundary of like, I don't mind just doing physical stuff, but I'm not going to give you oral sex. You're not going to penetrate me.
Got it.
And that's going to be it. And afterwards, because the person is kind of like, lured into the false belief that maybe you will, or maybe they get caught up in the moment. So they do things for you. And then when you don't reciprocate, it like made them sad after. Like it changed. And there are certain people that I actually look at to this day in LA that I had a positive experience and relationship with them. And they don't feel that way towards me, because even if I was upfront about what I was willing to do,
Right.
I don't know. So, and then, maybe it, and I'm giving myself grace and saying, well, I told you.
Right.
So if you feel weird about it, that's on you. So what you're saying almost feels very responsible.
Well, it's interesting because I hear what you're saying. I think what they sometimes think is, well, maybe that's how you feel now. Maybe you'll change your mind. And I think, and I don't know why that is. I don't. But that's them on their journey. But I think now...
But you take responsibility for that.
Well, here's the deal. The onus is on us because like we have to trust that you believe what we're saying. But then you have to in that moment to go, okay, then we can't engage anymore, because if you think that I'm going to change how I'm operating because you're special, then we're not on the same wave.
But I think what's really nice about what you're saying is that I guess you're not putting it, because you could put it on the other person in the end. I could. Like, I've had people sit at the end of my bed, like, with their hands in their face.
Woo, that's tough.
I know.
That's hard.
But I had been there before with other people, so I could have said beforehand, even though you're consenting, even though you're saying yes, I'm going to make a decision on your behalf almost, and say the nicest thing that I could do is stop intimacy beyond this point, which I know people tend to have a hard time with if they don't get the outcome they're expecting, even if I didn't promise that outcome. And I think a lot of people wish that people would do that for them. It's almost like taking responsibility for someone else's feelings.
Right.
So,
but the tricky thing is, the person has their face in their hands, not because of your actions, but because of their own. Because they do have choice. And if they have told themselves they're cool with something, went along with it, after the fact, had some self-discovery and realized, oh, I'm not cool with this. The immediate reaction is to be sad and face in hands, but then hopefully once they kind of look up and remove their hands, they got to say, you know what? I thought I could handle this, but I can't. That's not on you, that's on me. And if that person can't do that, and it goes back to they couldn't handle it. And now you know that. And now you're like, okay, you thought you could handle something. That's fair. We all sometimes think we can do something, and then we actually do the thing and then realize we can't. So there you are in practice. So hopefully the next time that someone says to them, hey, I don't want to go this far, they should say, you know what? I was in an experience where I said I could handle this. I've learned I'm not good at that, so I'm gonna pass on this one because I can't. I've literally done it. I've done that with someone. It did not work out well for me, so I can't do it. And that's the only way you learn. It's that thing of sometimes you need to get your heart broken so you can know what it feels like for it to be mended. We cannot go through this life escaping heartache, embarrassment, pain, suffering. It is impossible. We do not escape this life without experiencing those things. But the point of those things is for us to learn something about ourselves. And if we keep experiencing the same type of heartache, the same type of suffering, well, then now that becomes a choice. Now we're choosing to engage in that. Because we are responsible 100% for our misery, and we are 100% responsible for our happiness.
Do you feel like there is some type of piety, though, generosity, that you can give to somebody else? Because going back to that statement, the kindest thing you ever did for somebody was not have sex with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's you taking responsibility for them, too. So where does that expectation come in?
No, I can't take responsibility for anybody but myself, right? So it's interesting. I said the kindest thing I ever did for them. Actually, I can reframe it and say the kindest thing I ever did for myself was to not have sex with that person.
Why? Because you could have handled it, though, right?
No, because if I know they can't, then that would be tough on me. That's what I'm dealing with now. Knowing somebody couldn't handle something and I did it anyway because I wanted to do it. And we know. That's the thing. And if we don't, it's like we have to be in tune with ourselves so we can be in tune with other people. And a lot of people aren't in tune with themselves. And so that's why self-love, whether it be, is a form of, yes, masturbation, but also for me, meditation. Just being in quiet, just listening to myself, listening to my own body. And practicing that, it helps me to listen to other people. So I think I've had to realize that cuddling is just as significant as coming. And it took me to 40 to get there, because having a real, true level of intimacy with someone, I realized is just as significant as having sex with somebody. And I no longer put sex on a pedestal. I'll put just sitting quietly with someone, holding someone. And also, because I am sort of mask energy and very much protector, my initial energy when it comes to holding someone is to do this, to be the one doing the holding. And I've now learned, it took me a bit, that it's also very important for me to do this, to be held. And that is new for me. And that takes practice. And that can sometimes be like uncomfortable, to allow someone that's in the feminine to hold me, for me to be not the protector, for me not to be strong. And that is so much more rewarding than me giving her pleasure all night, because I think, oh, that's my job. Let me hold you, let me, make you come a bunch of times. That can be cool and fun, but to allow myself to be held by someone, that is a revelation.
Thank you so much to Lena for such an enriching conversation. Lena has a podcast of her own called Legacy Talk, where she sits down with your favorite Black entertainment trailblazers. Go check it out. But first, I'm sure you have some thoughts that you want to work through based on our dialogue. So join me in the lovers community as we digest how cuddling can be just as powerful as coming. I can't wait to hear your reflections on this one. So we're going to talk for 10 or 15 minutes. Consider that this part could potentially go in the episode, and then afterwards we can talk for real. So all of your not safe for work commentary, you can save. Anything that you want to bring to the top, now's your time.
I really love this episode because I love finally hearing like another person who's like mass presenting his perspective on not focusing, like not basing entire validity or value of a relationship or interaction with somebody based on the sex happened at the end of that interaction or not. And someone who can't really have sex unless I'm emotionally involved in some way or some form, man, I felt super affirmed by that whole conversation. It's so strange how you can just have like a beautiful evening or day, entire week with somebody that you find attractive, that you are romantically involved with. And the first thing your friends, especially if you got homeboys like me, first thing they ask you at the end of it is, how's pussy? How did it go? And you say, we didn't do all that. We just hung out. We just enjoyed each other. And then it's like, y'all just wasting time. And it's like, okay, all right. But
it was kind of like a conversation that I wish my parents would have had with me when I was young. Like, I feel like the sex talk, like, this is the sex talk that I wish every young kid could have, because it was really about, like, slow down and think about what you actually want. And even with that person, ask those questions and be okay with having those conversations. Because I feel like you're young and horny and just like things just happen. Like, you don't think. And then afterwards, I'm like, I could have probably done without that experience. And then, oh, the that she said she loves self love. And I'm like, I really wish that I learned to masturbate at a much younger age, because I feel like in those cases, if I had stopped to ask those questions and taken, that time, I could have provided myself with that instead.
I want to just add on to that last point because I never thought about that and listened to the episode, which is why it's so great to have this conversation because that moment kind of bypassed me. But it wasn't until I was 30 that I did that, where I had like a really hot, connected, cool encounter with somebody who was showing me, for lack of a better term, pre-healed Mario vibes. And so I was like, oh, I kind of see where this is going, but I really, really feel horny. But I was like, you know what? Who we're gonna become afterwards and how the trajectory of this relationship, I can already see where this is going. So I excused myself, I left, and I masturbated in my car. And that masturbation session was actually very memorable. It was really good and positive. So I still had great sex that night, but in a way that was healthier for me. And so, yeah, when you said that, Stephanie, because it might be strange to tell your kid, it's like, you could still feel horny, but just say goodnight and go masturbate. That actually would be a part of the talk that I think would have been helpful for me. I don't know if for my parent per se, but somebody, I wish somebody said that.
It was bringing up a lot of conversations about consent and like how we can like raise the bar of like not just enthusiastic yeses, but like really considering our partner and like not taking away their autonomy per se, but like if I see someone fully and I'm like, you know, is this really in our best interest? Like, are you really in a space? Like, I know you want it, I want it, but are we really both in a space to like engage in this without having some sort of like unintended negative consequences?
Can I just ask Denise, and everybody else can reflect on this too? Bridget, I know you want to go next, so you're next. But has anybody been in the position before where a mask presenting or a heterosexual man has declined to have sex with them and they have been able to look at it through a like, wow, you're really honoring what's intimate for you, or oh wow, that's really beautiful that you're taking consent to another level, or does it become offensive?
Yeah, I can answer. Most recently, like I ended a relationship with someone, and like we had a closure conversation, and like we spent like the night together, and I felt like I wasn't, completely over the breakup, and like I wanted us to continue being intimate that night. And he was like, like I just don't think like that would be in our best interest right now. Like we ended a relationship, like emotions are high, and like I don't like want this to end poorly. Like I want us to end in a good space, and like although those times are like kind of awkward in the moment, I'm so grateful.
I was just gonna say real quick on the other side of the question, um, I would say maybe I've had like one instance where I've rejected sex where it was a positive outcome. Any other instance, it was definitely. I mean, of course, you get the accusations that you gay or something. I don't really get that no power, but like there's like there's usually been like a I don't really like them for real type of feeling or something like that. Like they assume that it's never been serious because I don't want to have sex, or like even worse, if we do have sex and I don't come and I don't need to come, I'm just satisfied from the experience. Like that's a whole other level of rejection that the partners I've had who have experienced that has stirred all types of animosity that, like Sarah was saying, just kind of fucked the whole energy of the whole situation. So it's like nothing was good now. One thing Lena said that I really loved that she talked about, just because you can do something doesn't mean you need to do it. That's the definition of responsibility in my book. And for me, my sex life has been so much better once I learned that. Once I realized I don't have to just take advantage of it just because it's in front of me, because I know what can happen down the line as a repercussion. I'm talking about has revolutionized my sex game completely.
All right, it seems like we all have some stories that we want to share a bit more privately, so I'm going to end the recording right now and then let's stay on and really get into it. But I'm so glad that you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that all you did too. Big shout out to the Lovers by Shan community. This is a space that I created for people who love love. It's for those of us who are passionate about reaching our intimate potential. On my site, you're gonna find an AI trained on 20 years of my work where you can ask any questions. You'll also find free quizzes and resources, plus a place to sign up for my weekly newsletter, and last, but certainly not least, information on the Lovers by Shan community. If you want to be a part of intimate conversations just like the one you just saw, join the waitlist, and hopefully I'll meet you soon, lover.
Like where I am when I wrote the Thanksgiving episode on Master of None is a very different place from where I am when I write Queen and Slim, from where I am when I write the pilot of The Shy. I'm in different places in my life, relationships, and my spirit. So that needs to be a timestamp of where I am on my journey. And the
So
work
it has nothing to do?
nothing to do with anybody else. Now, what they take from it is up to them. That's the thing about art. Whatever people think about it is fair. Because I've never defended my work, ever. Somebody want to say, oh, that's trauma porn, or she's exploiting black painters. You're right. Because that's your opinion. Even if it may not be my intention, all we have is our interpretation. And your interpretation is just as valid as mine, even if they are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Because that's what art is supposed to do.
This makes sense as to why you're more private with your intimate life, because maybe you don't want people's interpretations.
Not their interpretations, I don't want their projections. People project on the public figures because we're mirrors. So people want me to show up a certain way so that way I can reflect back to them what they want to see about themselves.